evening and welcome to tonight's show of Against the Clock, your variety sports talk show where we take 3 topics and debate those topics for 90 seconds each. Let's go ahead and tip off tonight's show with college basketball. As you both know that the season tipped off last night with several top 10 teams were in action on opening night, with one of them sticking out to many, and that's the Duke Blue Devils, who came into the season ranked number 4 but put a beating to number 2 last night. That is Kentucky. With Kansas also with a strong outing against a tough opponent in Michigan State. What are your guys' predictions for the Final Four come March? Jimmy, I'm going to start with, Hunter, I'm going to start with you.
I think there's a couple monster teams that can make a serious run at the title this year. My Final Four prediction, I have Kansas, I have Duke, I have Virginia, and I have Gonzaga. But for me, I think the obvious choice as of now with all the hype building around them is the Duke Blue Devils with the monster recruiting class of Zion Williamson, R.J. Barrett, Trey Jones, Cam Reddish. Although you might need that veteran leadership, I think they have enough talent down in their freshman class to be able to carry them down the stretch.
I'm going to say mine is somewhat similar. I'm going to have to say Duke, Kansas. I'm going to have to mix it up a little bit, North Carolina and Villanova. I just think that, these are teams that in the past have been known to do so great. And, Villanova under Jay Wright, I really like Villanova always. I believe Randall Pascal was like the leading scorer for them the other night. And, they looked like they were right back, returning champs from last year, winning the tournament and everything like that. So it's always good to see a team come back strong. But I will agree with Hunter. Duke, they looked really good last night. Zion Williamson had 28 and 7, 7 rebounds. I think he played great for a debut for a rookie.
Yeah, I do think this is the year Virginia does break out. They've had trouble in the past making a stretch. Like obviously last year with the disappointment being bounced in the first round. I think this is the year. We all know Tony Bennett's a great defensive coach, arguably the best defensive coach in the country. But I do think this is the year they get a guy like Kyle Guy, their junior, their leader on offense, and I do think they make an explosion offensively this year.
That's all we have for topic 1, as now we head to the NFL. Before the trade deadline, the Dallas Cowboys sent a first-round draft pick to the Oakland Raiders for Amari Cooper. Several Dallas fans were ecstatic about this trade, but when it came to Monday Night Football against the Tennessee Titans, they laid an egg. Is it time now for the Dallas Cowboys to make a change in Big D? Or, what needs to happen now with a 3-5 start to the season?
This may be a very biased opinion due to my favorite team, Philadelphia Eagles, but I've never been a big fan of Dak Prescott. I think he's part of the reason. I don't think he's essentially the quarterback that will get them to the spot that they need to be. And behind him, you have to look at guys like Cooper Rush. And, I'm not too sure of, who the third string is, but they don't really have a definite leader on that team. You could depend on Ezekiel Elliott to get you your yards, but he can't do it all. We've seen that with the New York Giants, with Saquon Barkley. So I personally think it's the quarterback situation.
Well, nowadays it's always going to start from the manager and all the way down to the bottom. And I think although Jerry Jones has had success back in the 90s and all the great runs he's had, at some point the blame's got to go on his shoulders. They have 2 playoff wins in 23 years, and we all know Jerry Jones is a great football mind. But I think his biggest issue is he lets his relationships with his staff and his players and his coaches get the best of him. Him and Jason Garrett seem to be all buddy-buddy, and I think the personnel around the franchise itself is starting to get annoyed with how he's carrying his relationships with the coach, because most people in the NFL don't believe Jason Garrett should have a job.
Yeah, and I agree. I feel like most coaches in Jason Garrett's situation would have been fired by now. That's ridiculous. Like you said, 2 playoff wins since probably, 96? Mm-hmm. That was like the last time they actually were, considered good, actually. They can't even get past the wild card game, let alone, get to an NFC championship. So I just think it's a little ridiculous. I think they need to make that move and either, get a new hired coach or get a new quarterback.
Well, the Cowboys are certainly a mess, and we'll see what happens later down the season. But as we wrap up tonight's show, let's talk about one team in the NBA that was thought to be in contention in the West. Now we know it's only early in the season, but the LA Lakers are sitting in 11th in the conference with a 4-6 record. Is it time for Magic Johnson to pull the plug on Luke Walton, or is there other changes that we need to make that are needed to be made to the roster before that happens? Hunter, I'll start with you.
Corey, I think it's pretty simple. I think right now they have no intensity on defense whatsoever. They are 28th out of 30 teams in the NBA in defensive rating right now. They're allowing 120 points a game. And being the leader of that team, LeBron's got to be the first guy to make a move. He's not living up on his end of the bargain on playing defense. And once he starts picking up his intensity, all the younger guys that he's surrounding himself will also pick up their end of the bargain.
I will also say, too, I mean, LeBron should have known what he was getting himself into with the Los Angeles Lakers. This is exactly what I saw. I know a couple episodes ago I spoke about the LeBron era possibly being over. I just think playing in L.A., playing in the Western Conference is just a tough feat. Like, he's never really had to face this in the Eastern Conference, you know. A lot of the Eastern teams aren't, you know, dynamically built like this and have the bench to, you know, really battle. But I feel like LA is being that youngest, the baby team of the West. And, you know, you got the Timberwolves. You know, they beat the Blazers the other night, but the Blazers are even a tough team. You got the Rockets. You can't forget about them. There's a lot of good teams in the West. So I just think he just has to take that veteran position. Like he said, once he steps up the slack, I think everything will be fine.
And I know Magic Johnson said that Luke Walton's job is secure. I don't necessarily feel that way. I believe if Luke Walton, I think in their next 9 games, they play 7 teams that are under 500. And if they slack during this stretch, they might be in trouble. Luke Walton might lose his job, and they're not getting any consistency. One night it's Lonzo, one night it's Kuzma. They haven't really got much production from Brandon Ingram at all, but they got to get this consistent production from all these players any given night.
And if LeBron wants to win a championship, you know it's got to happen soon. With his career winding down, that's all we have for this week's episode. Join us again in 2 weeks to discuss more breaking topics in the sports world here on Only Against the Clock. I'm your host, Corey Zimmerman, with Hunter Emmenheiser and Jimmy Brown. We'll see you guys next time.